March 1945. Somewhere in the Pacific Ocean. USS transport ship Hades. The brig, ship's jail, was deep below the waterline. It was hot, humid, and smelled of diesel oil. Sarge sat on a steel bunk, reading a crumpled newspaper that a guard had smuggled in. "Look at this," Sarge rasped. He held up the paper. The headline read, "Berlin offers bounty for the grave diggers, dead or alive." 1,000,000 Reichsmarks, Sarge whistled. "We're famous, boys. Hitler knows my name." Nitro was hanging upside down from the pipes on the ceiling, trying to catch a cockroach. "Do we get the money if we turn ourselves in?" he giggled. Ghost was sharpening his tomahawk on the steel frame of the bed. The sound was rhythmic, hypnotic. Shk, shk. Tiny was sleeping on the floor. He didn't fit on the bunk. He twitched in his sleep, muttering about smashing things. The heavy iron door groaned open. The OSS colonel, their handler, walked in. He looked sweaty and nervous. He wasn't wearing his usual crisp uniform. He was wearing tropical fatigues. "Pack your gear," the colonel said. "We have a detour." Sarge stood up slowly. "Detour? We were promised a pardon and a ticket home." "Plans changed," the colonel wiped his forehead. "You're too hot. The Germans have sleeper agents looking for you in the States. We can't send you back yet." Sarge narrowed his eyes. He smelled a lie. "So where are we going?" The colonel threw a dossier on the bunk. It was stamped ultra secret. "Coordinates 12 north, 135 east, unnamed volcanic island. The Marines call it the Island of Skulls." "Why?" Nitro dropped from the ceiling. "Because a Japanese general named Kuro, the Black Ghost, has turned it into a slaughterhouse. He operates out of a cave system. Every night his men sneak into the Marine perimeter, cut off heads, and vanish. The Marines are terrified. They refuse to advance." "So you want us to do what the Marines won't?" Sarge asked. "I want you to go in, find General Kuro, and kill him. If you do this, I can get you new identities. You disappear, for real this time." Sarge looked at his team. He looked at Tiny, who was now awake and cracking his knuckles. He looked at Ghost, whose eyes were black pits. Sarge knew the colonel was lying. After this mission, the army would likely put a bullet in the back of their heads to tie up loose ends. Sarge smiled. It was a wolf's smile. "Okay, Colonel, we'll take the job, but we do it our way." As the colonel left, Sarge whispered to the group, "Listen up. We aren't going back to the cage. This is the exit. We finish the job and then we vanish. No bodies, no witnesses. We die on that island. Understand?" Ghost nodded once. Tiny grinned. Nitro started vibrating with excitement. "I've always wanted to be a ghost," Nitro whispered. The drop. Blood in the water. 0200 hours. 2 miles off the coast of the island. The sea was black and angry. The waves were 6 feet high. They were in a rubber zodiac raft, paddling silently toward the dark silhouette of the volcano. "Why are we rowing?" Tiny complained. "My arms hurt." "Because the engine makes noise, you giant lump," Sarge hissed, "and because the water is full of mines." Suddenly, something bumped the bottom of the raft. Hard. The rubber floor bulged upward. "Log?" Nitro asked nervously. "No," Ghost said, looking into the black water. "Teeth." A dorsal fin, gray and scarred, sliced the water next to the raft. It was huge. A tiger shark, drawn by the smell of the war. The bodies dumping into the ocean for months. Bump! The shark rammed the raft again. It was testing the prey. Then, chaos. The shark attacked. It bit into the side of the rubber boat. Air hissed out violently. The raft folded like a taco. "We're going down," Sarge yelled. "Tiny, get it off!" They fell into the water. It was warm and salty. Sarge kicked, trying to keep his Thompson dry. Nitro was flailing, holding his explosives above his head. The shark circled back. It was a 15-foot monster. It came for Tiny. Most men would scream. Tiny didn't scream. He was insulted. "Get away from me, fish!" Tiny roared. As the shark opened its mouth, rows of serrated razors visible in the moonlight, Tiny didn't swim away, he swam at it. He grabbed the shark by the gills, his massive hands dug into the rough skin. The shark thrashed, whipping Tiny through the water like a rag doll, but Tiny didn't let go. He wrapped his legs around the shark's torso. He was riding it. He pulled his combat knife, a piece of steel the size of a machete. Stab, stab, stab. Tiny drove the knife into the shark's head, again and again. Black blood clouded the water. The shark shuddered and stopped moving. Tiny shoved the dead carcass away. He treaded water, breathing hard. Sushi, Tiny spat. Swim, Sarge ordered, before his friends show up. The beach of nightmares. They washed up on the shore, exhausted, wet, and angry. The beach was silent, too silent. Ghost, check the perimeter, Sarge whispered. Ghost moved into the jungle. He returned 2 minutes later. He didn't speak. He just pointed. They followed him. 50 yards from the beach there was a clearing. In the center of the clearing stood a row of bamboo stakes. On top of each stake was a head. American Marines. Some were fresh, some were skulls picked clean by crabs. Their mouths were sewn shut with wire. Their eyes were gone. This was General Kuro's welcome mat. Nitro stared at the heads. He stopped giggling.
"That's just rude," Nitro whispered. His voice was trembling, not with fear, but with a strange, cold rage. Sarge walked up to one of the heads. He recognized the unit patch on a scrap of uniform on the ground. 1st Marine Division. "Colonel said Kuro is a ghost," Sarge said, racking the bolt of his wet Thompson. "Well, tonight he meets the real thing." Tiny looked at the heads. He gripped his sledgehammer until his knuckles turned white. "Sarge," Tiny rumbled, "can I smash everything?" "Yeah, Tiny," Sarge said, looking at the dark mouth of a cave system halfway up the volcano. "You can smash everything, but we saved the general for last. We need his uniform." "Why?" Nitro asked. "For the exit strategy," Sarge winked. "Now, let's go dig some graves." The entrance. They moved up the volcanic slope. The ground was ash and razor-sharp obsidian rock. They found the entrance to the cave. It wasn't guarded by sentries. It was guarded by fear. The Marines wouldn't come this close. "Traps," Ghost whispered. He pointed to a thin vine stretched across the path. It was connected to a hidden bamboo frame loaded with spikes, a punji trap. Ghost stepped over it. Then he stopped. He knelt down and sniffed the air. "Smoke," Ghost signaled, "and sulfur." They crept into the mouth of the cave. It was massive, like a cathedral of black rock. Inside, deep in the shadows, they saw flickering torchlight, and they heard a sound, a rhythmic, metallic sound. Clang, clang, clang. It sounded like a smithy or a butcher shop. "Ghost, scout ahead," Sarge ordered. "If you see Kuro, don't kill him. We need chaos first." Ghost melted into the darkness. He didn't walk on the floor. He climbed the rock walls, clinging to the stalactites like a spider. Below him, he saw the first cavern. It was a barracks. Dozens of Japanese soldiers were sleeping on mats. But in the center, a man was working. He was huge for a Japanese soldier. He was shirtless, his body covered in traditional Yakuza tattoos. He was sharpening a katana on a whetstone. This wasn't Kuro. This was his executioner. Ghost pulled his tomahawk. He looked back at Sarge and signaled, "One target. Big. Can I take him?" Sarge nodded. The hunt was on. The duel. Tomahawk versus Katana. Ghost hung from a stalactite 20 feet above the cavern floor. His muscles burned, but he didn't move. Below him, the tattooed executioner, a giant of a man named Sergeant Kato, wiped the oil from his katana blade with a white silk cloth. Around him, 50 Japanese soldiers slept on straw mats. The air was thick with the smell of unwashed bodies and incense. Ghost looked at Sarge, who was hiding in the shadows of the tunnel entrance. Sarge drew his finger across his throat. Quiet kill. Ghost let go.
He fell silently, landing in a crouch behind the executioner. But Kato had the instincts of a predator. He spun around, the katana slashing horizontally at neck height. Ghost ducked. The blade sliced the air where his head had been, humming like an angry hornet. Ghost lunged, swinging his tomahawk. Clang! Steel met steel. Sparks showered the sleeping soldiers. The sound woke them up. 50 pairs of eyes opened. But before they could grab their rifles, Kato shouted a command in Japanese. "Back! He is mine!" The soldiers formed a circle, a ring of spectators in the torchlight. They wanted blood. Kato smiled. His teeth were filed into points. He assumed a kendo stance. Ghost didn't smile. He spun the tomahawk in his hand. He pulled his combat knife with the other. Kato charged. The katana moved in a blur of deadly geometry. Overhead strike, side slash, thrust. Ghost parried with the tomahawk, deflecting the heavy sword, dodging by millimeters. Kato was strong, but Ghost was fluid. Kato swung a heavy blow meant to cleave Ghost in two. Ghost stepped into the swing. He trapped the katana blade between the head of his tomahawk and the handle. With a violent twist of his wrist, Ghost snapped the katana blade. Crack! The top half of the sword flew spinning into the darkness. Kato stared at his broken weapon in shock. Ghost didn't hesitate. He buried the combat knife in Kato's stomach. Then he brought the tomahawk down on Kato's collarbone. The giant fell. The cave went silent. The Japanese soldiers stared at the American savage standing over their champion. Then, from the tunnel entrance, a roar shattered the silence. "Tiny smash!" The mosh pit. Tiny charged into the cavern like a bowling ball hitting pins. He swung his sledgehammer in a 360-degree arc. The first 3 Japanese soldiers who rushed him were broken like dry twigs. Sarge stepped in behind him, the Thompson submachine gun chattering. Rat-a-tat-tat-tat-tat! "Nitro! The fuel!" Sarge screamed over the noise. Nitro sprinted past the melee. He wasn't interested in the fight. He was looking for the cave's supply dump. He found it in a side tunnel, stacked barrels of aviation fuel for the seaplanes hidden in the lagoon, and crates of dynamite. "Jackpot," Nitro giggled. "It's Christmas morning." He began wiring the barrels. He didn't just want an explosion. He wanted to collapse the entire mountain. He wanted to bury the evidence of their existence. "Time to disappear," Nitro whispered, setting a 10-minute fuse on a bundle of TNT. Back in the main cavern, the battle was a meat grinder. Tiny had lost his hammer in the skull of an officer. He picked up a heavy wooden bench and threw it at a group of riflemen. Sarge reloaded his Thompson. He checked the hallway leading deeper into the mountain. "Tiny, Ghost, leave them. We need the general." They broke contact, sprinting down the dark corridor, leaving a pile of groaning bodies behind them. The inner sanctum. They reached the end of the tunnel. There was a wooden shoji screen door. Light flickered from behind it. Sarge kicked the screen down. They stopped. The room was beautiful. The floor was covered in pristine tatami mats. Silk tapestries hung on the stone walls. In the center, a small fountain bubbled with fresh water. And sitting at a low table, pouring tea, was General Kuro. He wore a ceremonial kimono over his uniform. His face was calm, almost bored, but the decorations in the room were horrifying. Along the walls, on wooden pedestals, were hundreds of American dog tags, and in the corner a pile of flayed skins, tattoos cut from the bodies of Marines. "You are loud," Kuro said, in perfect English, sipping his tea. "I expected better." Sarge stepped onto the mat, his boots leaving muddy prints on the clean straw. "We aren't Marines, General," Sarge said. "We're the garbage men." Kuro looked up. His eyes were dead. "I know who you are. The grave diggers. Berlin warned us about you. Kuro stood up slowly. He reached for a sword on a stand behind him. It wasn't a military sword. It was an ancient blade, rippling with Damascus steel patterns. This blade has taken 500 heads, Kuro said softly. Yours will be 504. Tiny stepped forward. I'm gonna snap it like a twig, little man. No, Sarge ordered. Tiny, back off. Ghost, he's yours. Ghost stepped forward. He looked at the skins in the corner. He looked at the dog tags. He dropped his tomahawk. He dropped his knife. He wanted this to be personal. He wanted to do it with his hands. Kuro smiled. Fool. The general attacked. He was faster than Kato. He was a master. The sword flashed. Ghost dodged, but not fast enough. A shallow cut opened on his chest. Kuro spun, slashing at Ghost's legs. Ghost jumped, kicking Kuro in the face mid-air. The general stumbled back, spitting blood. His composure cracked. Die, filth! Kuro screamed, lunging. Ghost caught the general's wrists. This was the moment. Strength versus steel. Ghost twisted Kuro's arms. The sword tip pointed down at the general's own foot. Ghost stomped on the blade. The sword went through Kuro's foot, pinning him to the floor. Kuro screamed. Ghost didn't stop. He grabbed Kuro by the hair. He smashed the general's face into the stone floor. Once, twice. Kuro lay dazed, pinned by his own weapon.
Sarge walked up. Don't kill him yet. We need his uniform. Why? Tiny asked, confused. Because, Sarge checked his watch, in 4 minutes this whole island is going to explode, and when the U.S. Marines find the bodies, they need to find us. Sarge pulled a set of American dog tags from his pocket. They belonged to him, Tiny, Ghost, and Nitro. We're going to leave these here, Sarge said, along with some bodies burned beyond recognition. The army will think we died heroes, and while they are having a funeral for us, we will be on a boat to Shanghai. The setup. Nitro ran into the room. Sarge, the fuse is burning. We got 3 minutes before the mountain comes down. Perfect, Sarge said. They stripped the unconscious General Kuro of his uniform. Then Sarge did something dark. He dragged the body of a dead Japanese soldier into the room. He put his own dog tags around a dead soldier's neck. Goodbye, Jack Calloway, Sarge whispered. Tiny did the same. He put his tags on the giant body of the executioner Kato. Goodbye, Tiny, the giant rumbled. Nitro threw his tags onto a pile of dynamite. I'm going out with a bang. Ghost placed his tags next to the pile of skins. Okay, Sarge said. Now we just need to leave. Nitro, did you find the exit? Yeah, Nitro pointed to a natural chimney vent in the ceiling. It leads up to the crater rim. It's a tight squeeze. What about the general? Tiny asked, looking at the naked, battered Kuro pinned to the floor. Sarge looked at the general. He stays, Sarge said. He likes this cave so much, he can be part of the geology. Sarge took a grenade. He pulled the pin. He placed it in Kuro's hand and wrapped the general's fingers around it with duct tape. Don't let go, General, Sarge winked. They scrambled up the chimney vent. The chimney of hell. The natural chimney vent wasn't a staircase. It was a jagged, vertical throat of the volcano, choked with sulfur fumes and razor-sharp obsidian glass. The heat was rising. Below them, Nitro's charges had detonated the fuel dump. The fire was sucking the oxygen out of the shaft. Move! Move! Sarge choked, pushing Tiny upward. Tiny was grunting, his massive shoulders scraping against the rock walls. He was like a cork in a bottle. I'm stuck, Sarge, Tiny wheezed. Too many sausages. Exhale, Sarge screamed. Push! Below them, a rumble started. Deep in the earth, the explosion had cracked the geothermal seal. The volcano wasn't just burning, it was waking up. Nitro looked down. A wave of orange light was rising fast. Fire in the hole, literally, Nitro giggled hysterically, scrambling up past Ghost. They burst out onto the crater rim just as a tongue of flame licked the opening. They rolled onto the ash, gasping for air. The night sky above them was choked with black smoke.
But they weren't safe. They were at the top of the island. The boat, a stolen Japanese patrol craft they had spotted earlier, was hidden in a cove at the bottom. Between them and freedom lay a mile of jungle that was currently waking up to the apocalypse. The descent. It was biblical. The entire top of the volcano collapsed inward. A column of fire and ash shot 20,000 feet into the air. The cave system, where General Kuro was pinned to the floor holding a grenade, was vaporized. The beach with the heads was buried under 10 feet of lava. The island of skulls was cleansing itself with fire. That, Nitro wiped a tear of joy from his eye, is the most beautiful thing I have ever seen. Tiny opened a crate of Japanese rations found on the boat. He pulled out a tin of fish. "Needs salt," Tiny mumbled, eating it in one bite. Sarge looked at the burning island. Then he looked at his men. They were battered, bleeding, and dirty, but they were free. He pulled his own dog tags off his neck. He looked at them one last time. Callaway, Jack, U.S. Army. He threw the metal tags into the ocean. "Jack Callaway died back there," Sarge said. "Who are you?" Ghost threw his tags into the water. Tiny threw his. Nitro kissed his tags and tossed them. "I'm just a tourist," Sarge smiled. "Let's go to Shanghai." The aftermath. The lie. 2 days later, USS Wasp, aircraft carrier. The OSS colonel stood on the flight deck, reading a report. His face was pale. A Marine recon team had rowed close to the island after the eruption calmed down. "Report," the admiral asked. "The island is destroyed, sir," the colonel said. "But we found traces." "Traces?" "In a cave mouth that wasn't buried, we found dog tags, Callaway, Miller, Smith, Jackson, and remains, burned beyond recognition, but they were wearing U.S. fatigues." The colonel swallowed hard. He knew these men. He knew they were survivors, but the forensic evidence was undeniable. And General Kuro? "Vaporized, sir, along with his entire garrison. The grave diggers, they completed the mission, and they paid the ultimate price." The admiral took off his hat. "God help their souls. They were criminals, Colonel, but they died like Marines. Seal the file. Recommend them for the Distinguished Service Cross, posthumously." The colonel nodded, but as he looked out at the vast Pacific Ocean, a strange thought crossed his mind. Did they really die? Or did they just dig one last grave for their own past?
Epilogue. The Ghosts of Macau. 1 year later, 1946, Macau. The Red Dragon gambling hall was thick with smoke and the sound of mahjong tiles clacking. It was a place where no one asked your name and everyone had a price. In a private booth in the back, 4 men sat around a table. They wore expensive linen suits. They looked like businessmen, or perhaps high-end mercenaries. The big one, a giant of a man, was eating a whole roasted duck with his bare hands. The bones crunched loudly. The skinny one was building a tower out of poker chips, giggling as he balanced a glass of whiskey on top. The dark-skinned one sat perfectly still, sharpening a steak knife on the edge of the table. And the leader, he was reading a newspaper from America. "Listen to this," the leader said, his voice raspy. He read from the New York Times. "Unsung Heroes of the Pacific. The Pentagon releases details of the suicide squad that saved thousands. A monument was unveiled today in Arlington." The leader laughed. He poured a drink. "To heroes," he toasted, raising his glass. "To dead men," the giant rumbled, raising his duck leg. "To the grave," the skinny one chirped. The quiet one just nodded. They drank. A waiter walked up to the table. He looked nervous. These men had an aura of danger that made the local triads give them space. "Excuse me, sir," the waiter asked the leader. "I need a name for the tab." The leader looked at the waiter. He smiled. It was the smile of a wolf who had eaten the sheep and gotten away with it. "Name's Smith," Sarge lied. Just 4 simple businessmen looking for a little excitement. Very good, Mr. Smith. As the waiter walked away, Sarge put his hand on the table. Under his expensive suit cuff, you could see a scar from a shark bite, or maybe a bullet. All right, boys, Sarge dealt the cards. Who's in? The night is young, and I hear there's a warlord in the north who has too much gold and not enough security. Tiny grinned. Does he have sausages? The camera pulls back, leaving the 4 ghosts in the smoke of the Macau night, disappearing into history, forever free.